What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video here today. Okay, we've got something very exciting for today, and that's because, it's been a while since I've kind of messed around with, kind of fun archetypes, or not necessarily fun, but kind of up-and-coming, or, archetypes that haven't been as explored as much. So last time I did a video series on Jacekai Geist. Now, while that deck has certainly fallen off the radar recently, it's still definitely a deck that has been explored quite a lot. To let you guys know, I recently, I think it was last week, got 31st place in the Modern Challenge out of 141 people with Jacekai Geist. This is the updated list. I will definitely include in the description below a link to the, posting on the Wizard site of the original list, but I only made a few changes, if I recall. I made a few sideboard tweaks, and I fixed the mana base a little bit. Overall, the deck was actually really sweet, and I definitely recommend, if you didn't check out the video series from last week, that Jacekai Geist is pretty well positioned right now against a lot of the kind of, uninteractive combo decks, the big mana. I wouldn't say it's better positioned as a control deck against big mana, because you have that clock, you have Field of Ruins, but in general, it's also really nice against the opposing Jace decks, right? And now Jace, definitely not as big as Bloodbraid Elf in the format, I will say that, but even so, Geist still lines up pretty well against some of the Bloodbraid Elf decks. Like, for example, Ponza just won the recent event, and Geist of St. Trap just clocks them very quickly. They can go ahead and blow up your lands, but if you land a Geist, it's just not that big of an issue. But not to say that this deck is perfect or anything like that, but it's definitely a deck that I've put in a lot of time into recently, and I've really been getting a lot of positive results with it, so I definitely recommend it to you guys. Again, link will be in the description for the, previous deck list. You can see here the updated deck list right in front of you. Anyways, let's go ahead and move on to today's video, right? And today we're going to be revisiting Blue-White Miracles, and we're missing a few cards here, so let's get them over here, because they're actually pretty important. So, what we have today here is Blue-White Miracles, and if you're not familiar with Miracle, it's, let me pull up one of the cards here, but for example, it has a mana cost at the top, right over there, and that's going to be its casting cost, if you want to play it from your hand or whatever, or without the Miracle. Let me just say that. I don't want to confuse anybody, but essentially, the Miracle cost is 1, and Miracle is enabled when you cast this card, if it's the first card you drew this turn. So, during your draw step, you can cast this card if it's the very first card you drew this turn. Sorry, that's not only during your draw step. Again, I'm already confusing you guys, but it can be any time you draw a card during your turn for the first time in the turn. You can cast the card for its Miracle cost. Hopefully that clears things up. So you may cast this card for its Miracle cost when you draw it, if it's the first card you drew this turn, okay? And that's the big deal here. What we can do is have a lot of deck manipulation to get these very powerful, expensive effects to only cost 1 mana, in Terminus's case, which is a 1 mana just board sweeper, which is insane, right? And then we also have Entreat the Angels, which is a really cheap win condition with the Miracle cost. It's 2 white and an X cost. You may cast this card for its Miracle cost when you draw it, if it's the first card you drew this turn. And that's what's really nice about Entreat the Angels. You can, during either your draw step or sometime you set up an instant speed draw effect, you can use this on your opponent's turn, and suddenly you have, maybe 3-4 angels out of nowhere. That's a lot of damage, so Entreat the Angels is fantastic. So, what for some of you guys, you may have seen my previous video series with Blue-White Miracles, and that was before we had Jace the Mind Sculptor in the format, right? I played this archetype when we kind of had to make do with Riverwise Augur to, brainstorm. And what I did was have Riverwise Augur plus Venser the Sojourner to essentially make your own Jace the Mind Sculptor, right? You have Riverwise Augur, which is actually pulled up right here. When it enters the battlefield, you essentially brainstorm. You draw 3 cards, put 2 cards from your hand on top of your library. This lets you set up the Miracle cards, right? You put them on top of your library so that you can draw them. But this is only like an effect you do once. Whereas, for example, Jace, every turn you can 0 brainstorm. So what I had was Venser the Sojourner is a planeswalker that a +2 blinks one of your creature, right? It exiles your creature, then returns it into play. And so essentially you got kind of unlimited brainstorms that way. But Jace obviously is the whole package all in one card and is now legal in Modern. So we don't need to mess around with anything like that. The deck can now be a little bit smoother. And that's what we're going for today. Okay, so essentially we have Jace to, brainstorm, fix the top of our library, essentially. But that can't be all you have, right? Because in Legacy you have cards like Literal Brainstorm and Ponder and things like that to set up your library for cheaper cost, right? So what we have here is 2 Serum Visions. We have 4 Opt for instant speed draw. And then we have 3 Telling Time. So look at the top 3 cards of your library, put one of those into your hand, one on top of your library, and one on the bottom. So if there's a miracle card in the top 3 cards of your library, you can put it on top, and then, of course, enable it. Of course, it's important to remember that Telling Time can be quite an awkward card. You won't always hit the miracles. Sometimes you see some really bad cards on top of your deck, and you don't want all of them, right? You don't want to keep them all. So Telling Time is definitely awkward. It's important to save your fetches sometimes, because if you have to leave a bad card on top of your library, it's nice to be able to shuffle it away before you actually have to draw it. What I like about Blue-White Miracles is that we have 4 Snapcasters rather than just 2 or 3 that Blue-White Control sometimes plays, because we have so many more cantrips. We have this ability to actually make use of all 4 Snapcaster mages, and that's what I really like about Blue-White Miracles, is that there's a lot of things you can just proactively do. You don't have to be a purely, not necessarily reactive deck, because even Blue-White Control is not particularly reactive. However, you just have a more proactive potential, and that's what I like about Snapcaster Mage. You can either hang back, keep up counter magic, or you can just go end of turn for 3 mana. Fix your deck or fix your draws with like Snapcaster Opt or something like that. Snapcaster Telling Time for 4 mana is also fantastic, and that's what I really like about Blue-White Miracles, being able to run the full 4 set of Snapcaster Mage and not feeling bad about it, right? Because you feel bad about that in Blue-White Control. You don't have enough targets, but here we have plenty of proactive targets for Snapcaster Mage. We have 2 Search for Azcanta, because that's just a fantastic control card. We have 2 Mana Leak and a Negate. We have 2 Cryptic Commands, so we're pretty light on counter magic in the main deck, but we do have some counter magic over here in the sideboard that we can side into if we need it. We have 2 Detention Fear, 2 Vendilion Click. I really like Vendilion Click in a deck like this, especially because we're really trying to jam, sorcery speed win cons like Entreat and Jace. So being able to kind of clear the way, see what's going on. Is it safe to tap out? Is it not safe to tap out? Do they have an answer? Do they not have an answer? Vendilion Click just answers so many questions when you're playing kind of these sorcery speed threat at times. So that's why I'm a big fan of 2 Vendilion Click here in the main deck. So we covered Jace. We're playing 3 of those. 4 is a little bit overboard, I found. Like, you definitely want to see 1 throughout the game, but you definitely don't, you don't really want to see 2 in your opener, I would say. Like, yeah, there's Thoughtseize out there, but it's quite a clunky card, right? We want to make sure that our top curve is not, too top heavy. We want to be interactive in the, early and mid game, so we can make it to this late game and just take over. But essentially, we covered most of that. We have 2 Cryptic Command because it's one of the best, most versatile counter spells in Modern. We've got a 3 Terminus, 1 Verdict split, because Terminus, while is great when it's miracled, it's quite clunky when it's not, okay? So I'm running a 3 Terminus, 1 Verdict split, because sometimes just being able to hardcast an uncounterable sweeper just gets the job done. All right, and then we of course have the 2 Entreat, and I believe I've covered everything. This is a pretty standard mana base. We're only running 3 Colonnades, so we're shaving essentially 1 win con, and I hope that's not incorrect, but it definitely might be. I just worry that, we want to get to turn 4 and we want to, tap Jace or tap out for Jace and things like that. Of course, 4 Field of Ruin is a staple in Blue-White Control these days. 4 Flooded Strand for, a great fetch land for fixing. We run 2 extra fetch lands because we want to have shuffle effects for Jace and Telling Time. And then we play about 8 basics here and 2 shocks. So mana base is pretty standard. Fair amount of basics, fair amount of fetch lands. Depending on the matchup, you might have to aggressively fetch out Hallowed Fountain first, so that you leave yourself open for the potential to top deck Terminus. But it really all depends on the matchup, but I like having access to 2 Hollowed Fountain because there's a lot of land hate out there as well, so having an extra Hollowed Fountain is definitely nice. Alright, let's cover the sideboard here. A lot of good hateful cards in white's sideboard, and that's what I really like about white, right? So we have 2 Aethersworn Canonists because Storm is huge right now. And while it does get hit by Bolt, you don't really suspect Storm to be bringing in Bolt against you. And I believe, you know, it also can't really get Grape Shotted. Yeah, because they would have had to cast some sort of spell, or I guess non-artifact spell, before they cast Grape Shot to be able to Grape Shot for 2. So Aethersworn Canonist is pretty safe, and it's a beater, and that's really important, right? You want to have a clock against Storm. 2 Rest in Peace, because this card is just really important. Even though it shuts down our Snapcasters or Search for Scanners, things like that, Rest in Peace is just so important in being such a hateful sideboard card for white. Along those lines, we also have Stony Silence, similar idea. Affinity, you know, while it can be a good matchup overall, it's really important to have that access to this really hateful card that also shuts off things from Tron, Eldrazi Tron, Lantern, Ironworks combo, and just some other narrow, like Ad Nauseam. It's not very, it's very, has a lot of broad applications. 2 Celestial Purge, because there's a lot of Blood Moon running around right now, a lot of Jund running around right now, so Purge is really good right now. Seal the Wreckage, I like against like Bogles right now. I think it's pretty useful. We have Ceremonious Rejection because Tron is always going to be kind of a difficult matchup for us. We have 2 Negates because we need some extra counter magic here because we're only running 5 in the main deck. And then Disdainful Stroke is kind of this, you know, it hits both, all the threats from essentially Tron, Valakut, Eldrazi Tron, and it can even be sided in against decks like Storm. So that's what I really like about Disdainful Stroke, but I'm not convinced that we need more than 1. And then we have Geist because just having an uninteractable clock against combo, against control, really goes a long way. And that's what I really like. So we're not running any Dispels. That could be wrong. I probably should be running some amount of Dispel in here. But we're going to try, you know, no Dispel and see how that works out for us today. So we're going to run this through, you know, 3 matches here for kind of an Under the Microscope series. I don't know if I have a time for full league today. But I do want to get you guys matches because it's been a while since I've recorded. So hopefully you guys will still appreciate some, you know, gameplay here. It's still, again, going to be competitive lobbies. You have to pay ticks to enter, so it's not just like random jank, although you sometimes run into that. But it's not going to be a modern competitive league. It's going to be a competitive single queue lobby. We'll run it through 3 of those, and then we'll come back and talk about how the deck performed. Okay, thank you all so much for watching this deck tech with Blue-White Miracles, and stay tuned for the first match coming up real soon. Alright, what is up, guys? Welcome back to the first match here with Blue-White Miracles. We won the die roll. No idea what my opponent is on yet, so let's go ahead and say we want to play first. This hand... yeah, I mean, it's pretty good, right? We have Serum Visions. We don't really know what we're looking for, but we have Snapcaster Mage and a Click. So... we also have Field of Ruin in case our opponent is on some sort of big mana strategy, and we have a clock against big mana, so I like that. But in this case, it's tough. Do we want to Serum Visions not knowing what we're up against? I think so. I think we have enough proactive elements in our deck that that's okay. The question is, do we want to save one of our fetches? Yeah, let's go ahead and just save those fetches, see what we draw into here. D-Sphere... so, we definitely don't want this land. I don't know if D-Sphere is going to be good, but it's our only piece of interaction right now, so I'm going to go ahead and keep it on top. It might be useful if we're up against some sort of, like, aggressive strategy, just having a piece of removal to interact with our opponent. Looks like that's a Wooded Foothills, which is scary. Wooded Foothills, alright, looks like we're up against, like, Ponza here. Whew, okay, red. So, we're not too soft to Blood Moon here. I'm going to go ahead and Serum Visions. I like seeing basics. Snapcaster Mage is okay. But not that great, actually. I'm going to go ahead and bottom it. Do I want another basic land? In the case we get Stone Rained, I think we do. in the case that we get Blood Mooned, I think we'll just go ahead and fetch for Flooded Strand. Fetch for Plains, excuse me. Wow, if our opponent like stockpiles on Utopia Sprawls and doesn't actually have any lands, I'm gonna happily Detention Sphere the Utopia Sprawl here. Yeah, for sure. And do I want to use my fetch land here? I probably do. Let's go ahead and get a Plains. Whoops. Again, make sure we have basics so that Blood Moon doesn't get us. But D-Sphere, just absolutely great here. And our opponent concedes. Well, good thing we kept that Detention Sphere on top. Alright, so looks like it's Ponza. This is kind of the flavor of the week right now, okay? So, Ponza is big right now. Let's go ahead and get Negate in here. I actually like Geist in this matchup. There's an argument for... Yeah, Celestial Purge definitely coming in. There's an argument for Disdainful Stroke, but let's go ahead and make sure there's nothing else we might want to bring in. Definitely don't want Stonies, don't want Rest in Peace, and Canonist, not, I mean, actually Canonist does stop Bloodbraid Elf, right? So we can consider that, but it also shuts down our Snapcaster Mages. But anyways, I would say these 5 are definitely coming in, these 3 are maybes, so we don't need the full Terminus package here, but some number is still important. Let's see. I mean, Path to Exile does stop some of their, nasty draws, but not a lot. But it also, we can path our own creatures, so I think we can cut some number of Path to Exiles here. I like having a fast win con here, even though it's double white, it's a little scary. That might be a reason just to trim 1. Probably search is good enough that if my opponent doesn't have Blood Moon, it's just insane. So let's go ahead and get these negates in here. Maximize cheap interaction. Get Geist in there. Yeah, actually on second thought, I probably do want to cut 1 Search for Iscana. Got a lot of good interaction here. Question is, do we want this? They have things like tireless trackers and things like that, so I think I probably do. Probably do want the Supreme Verdict. Terminus can be useful because I can imagine there are some draws where they just really get us. So I think I definitely want the second Purge. Question is, what do I cut over it? Can probably safely cut another Terminus, I think. Just have 1 Terminus, 1 Verdict is enough for board sweepers for me, I think. Okay. Hand's got basics. And it's got a cantrip. So that's a keep to me. Keeping a land-heavy hand against Ponza is good, in my opinion. The question is, do we want to lead on Flooded Strand or Hollowed Fountain, or Celestial Colonnade? I think we want to probably lead on Flooded Strand here. Flooded Strand means my opponent can't turn to Stone Rain. It means Blood Moon is less effective. We'll just go ahead and fetch up an island. But it goes ahead and shocks here. Blood Moon. Well, we'll fetch, of course. Get ourselves a good old island here. And Blood Moon is in. And we don't want to expose our plains just yet. So let's go ahead and just keep up double island here for telling time. If my opponent follows this up with like Stone Rain here, definitely going to be rough, but so here we're looking for counter magic. Or a Vendilion Click. Boy, oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. I guess we take Path to Exile and put... Oh my gosh. That's really bad for us. Well, let's just go ahead. Again, don't want to expose my my Path to Exile. Align, if we draw a basic island, we can go Snapcaster Mage, Path our own. Sure. Yeah, that land wasn't doing anything anyways, so if my opponent gives me enough time to draw out of this, then we might be in a good position, but this is what Ponza does. So I'm looking for an island here. Gate is what we were looking for a while back. Definitely not what we need right now. Sure, alright, that's another Blood Moon, which is pretty good. It means one Celestial Purge doesn't get us out of this just yet. They tapped all their green sources, so I imagine they're sitting on a land, saving it for like Tireless Tracker. It's possible they're sitting on another Stone Rain. They want to know if maybe they're saving it for a basic land. But again, essentially my plan here is to find a basic island and Path to Exile my own Snapcaster Mage. Well, there's Celestial Purge. I guess we play out Plains now, although that might be a misplay. Sure, that's just not too scary. The question is, if we hit Island, we could go Snap Purge. So I think it's worth it. Just slowly start getting rid of them. And we hit Basic Island. So this is us crawling back into this game here, I feel. Birds of Paradise, sure, not scary at all. So if I trade for Arbor Elf here, it means I'm putting shields down, and I'd rather not go shields down for one turn. So let's go ahead and Snapcaster Mage here. Go ahead and target Celestial Purge. And our opponent concedes, right? So the thing with Ponza is the issue is that, sure, they can blow up your lands, they can make it that you can't play, but if they don't have pressure, you have all the time in the world to find what you need. Now, of course, we top-decked two very timely cards, right? We top-decked Celestial Purge into Basic Island, okay? But those are cards we put in our deck for a reason, right? So, overall, I wouldn't say the Ponza matchup is favored in any way, shape, or form, but you can see that that's sometimes how Ponza loses. They don't have any threats to follow up their land destruction. And because we're not a land-light deck, right, we're a control deck, we have cantrips, we fix our draws, and we have top end, right? So it's very hard to mana screw us, but it's definitely possible to Blood Moon us out of the game. However, right there, you know, we fought through a boil, we fought through 2 Blood Moons, and we came out victorious. Anyways, thank you all so much for watching. That was the first match here with Blue-White Miracles against Red-Green Ponza. We didn't get to see any of the fun stuff, like Jace or, you know, any miracle action, but, you know, Ponza is definitely not really the matchup for that. But hopefully we can see that in the next matchup. So stay tuned for the second match coming up real soon.